I just want to acknowledge and say greetings, good people that are gathered here today. Thank you so much for being here. It's my profound honor to stand here before you today on Anishinaabe and Wampum territory. And in this country we know as Canada's capital. I'm honored to be Canadian, and I'm honored to be from the Tahltan Nation. And I think one of the, this is probably the most difficult thing for me as an Indigenous person to accept all of the accolades it's very difficult for me because I really believe that this belongs to the profession and to all those who work beside us. So I'm accepting this award, the Ronald McDonald Outstanding Service Award, and I'm honored to follow in this path of so many of my valued mentors and friends that have received this as well. And I want to express my deepest gratitude for the CR Camp Board of Directors for this award, and to Claire Papavu and her incredible team for this lovely reception. I want to also thank you, my valued mentors, Leslie Lear and Mary Jo Romanak, and my incredible friend and colleague, Stacey Allison. I said that right? I always get a little lesson on that. And I'm really deeply humbled by their support and all of you for being here. As I said, this recognition is not just a personal milestone, but I wish to accept it on behalf of all Indigenous people who are actively working to preserve and activate our Indigenous knowledge, language, and culture, because it's through our collective efforts that we will create meaningful change and relationships between library archives and cultural memory institutions and our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, the Indigenous peoples of Canada, and hopefully beyond. As I accept this award, I'm reminded of the importance of making space for more Indigenous people in GLAM institutions. These institutions have an unparalleled capacity to preserve and serve as stewards of Indigenous knowledges, language, and cultural heritage, as well as a responsibility to create relationships with the originating peoples and communities, therein reflecting the richness of our Indigenous knowledge, language, culture, and history accurately and appropriately. I believe this is critically important as we move from a time of national collective amnesia and into a time where we're moving along the path of reconciliation, that we ensure that Indigenous voices are heard, and that we work to rectify systems of information management which have too often paralyzed Indigenous peoples and other diverse and unrepresented voices. These knowledge systems attempted to make invisible and erase many people's identities, Indigenous and other underrepresented communities here in Canada, our histories, our languages, and our knowledge systems during the colonial era, which, coupled with government policies that weaponized the Indigenous Act to erase the Indian and the child via residential school. And I stand here today as an intergenerational survivor of residential school, where these effects are still profoundly felt by our communities. And we just celebrated National Indigenous Truth and Reconciliation Day and Orange Shirt Day. And I want you to all think about, when you wore that orange shirt, what we're going to do in the next year. As currently today, our children being placed in care are in greater numbers than at the peak of the residential school era. I stand before you wearing red to bring awareness to the over 5,000 murdered and missing Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited peoples, of which I could have been one. I hope to exemplify our resilience and that we continue to exist, survive, and indeed thrive as Indigenous peoples. I am incredibly fortunate to stand on the shoulders of elders, knowledge keepers, and mentors who paved the way for me and shouldered me when I felt like giving up, and so many others who stood beside me. I'd like to specifically acknowledge Dr. Jean Joseph, whose perseverance brought me into a profession that I actually didn't want to go into. Coming out of anthropology and doing art and working on the land with elders was really my thing, but Many of these elders and their wisdom and guidance continues to shape my journey today. And I want to honor their contributions, which continue to resonate through the collective work that we all do. And I know that each and every one of you is part of that. My passion has always been to further intercultural understandings. As a person who has had to walk in both lives, not fully Indigenous and not fully Euro-Canadian, and to convey the connectivity and the living dynamic nature of Indigenous knowledge that I learned as a young child from my elders, as well as its intricate relationality to living cultures, lands, history, and language. I hope to continue sharing and promoting further understandings of Indigenous peoples and their resilience to continue their way of life and to work respectfully with all peoples regardless of race, religion, gender, sexuality, or societal status. We need Indigenous voices at the table, guiding how our stories are told, how our knowledge is preserved, and how we are represented. The preservation of Indigenous knowledge is not only an academic exercise, it's a commitment to ensuring that future generations can access the deep well of wisdom passed down through millennial. And I believe that the Respectful Terminology Platform project that I work on with my colleague, Dr. Stacey Callison, is aimed at ensuring this access with appropriate and respectful naming, accurate terminology, and providing access to information regarding Indigenous peoples and topics related to Indigenous knowledge for future generations. It really is about healing, reconciling, and empowering Indigenous people by ensuring that their voices are central in these institutions. I also want to emphasize the value of collaboration and bridge building in this work. My journey has been deeply shaped by the many colleagues and allies who work with me and alongside of me, and many of you are here today, who share the vision of more inclusive and respectful knowledge infrastructures for all peoples. Together, we can challenge outdated norms and create spaces where Indigenous and non-Indigenous people alike can learn, share, and grow in respect for one another. Finally, I want to thank my family and friends and many mentors who have stood beside me in this journey. Your support has been invaluable, and I share this honor with all of you. And I want to especially acknowledge my longtime friend, because you're not old yet, and that I actually did my first year in my degree with her and her baby girl who turned 31 today. And thank you for being here, because I know it's hard to be away from your daughter on her birthday. So let's continue to work together towards a more inclusive future for the GLAM sector, where Indigenous and many other diverse voices are heard and cultural heritage are not only preserved, but celebrated and respected. Thank you, and Madhu. I raise my hands to all of you for waiting through this whole speech.